So it's Saturday, October 6th, and we're at Billy Keel's house in Silver Lake on Occidental Boulevard. And Marco Larson and Debbie Jagamian are on camera. Mark Simon is here. I'm Cheryl Revkin. And we're going to start the interview. So thank you so much for having us.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming.
A celebrity in Silver Lake now. Why don't you first just tell us about your background, like your family, where you come from?
Sure, yeah. I was originally born in Florida, and then I moved to Boston when I was about 10 years old. And then I went away to high school in the Boston area. And then I went to college in Connecticut at Wesleyan University.
Wesleyan.
Yeah. I went to high school at Andover, Phillips. And then when I got out, it turns out Wesleyan has a huge community of like filmmakers and writers for a pretty small school in New England, and they all moved out here. So I came to visit, and they were actually friends of mine were actually living in Silver Lake, and I'd never heard of it before. And I came out here, and no one tells you this part of Los Angeles exists when you're on the East Coast, you know?
Absolutely.
I think it's a good job of keeping it secret. So I came, and they had a house actually on Mitchell Train over here, and I just remember thinking like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And shortly after moved out here.
Great. So you went to the prep school in Andover, right?
I did, yeah.
Right. And did they have art classes in the high school?
Oh yeah, yeah. They had a great art facility there, and you know, it was kind of old. It's kind of an old school sort of art curriculum. But what was really cool for me going there was that like a lot of I was into sports when I went to school. I played football and lacrosse, and a lot of the coaches were also artists. Which like one of our conditioning coaches was a poet. You know, and the one of the D-line coach that I had was like an English teacher who started this thing called the Bread Loaf program. So it kind of introduced me to the idea that you could be into sports and also be into art at the same time, which is like pretty profound coming from like, you know, outer Boston where those were separate worlds, you know?
So they were good role models for you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
did you take some art classes in high school?
I did, yeah. I took a lot. I did AP art,
What does that mean, APR?
just like the advanced art class that you can do, like if you're really into it. There's me and one other guy on the football team that would have to miss some practice to go to it. But yeah, I definitely was very interested in like, it was amazing because we did life drawing classes and stuff that you don't, you know, get to do at some other high schools.
At the high school level, so AP also meant you could take maybe more sophisticated art classes.
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
way.
Yeah, draw models and, you know, everything like that, yeah.
And are there any artists in your family?
Let's see, artists in my family. Not really. I have a cousin who's a painter in New York, I believe, Billy Kheel, but not overly that I can think of. I mean, what probably influenced me more is my grandmother was an actress, and so she was sort of a comedian, and she like was on like Saturday Night Live and like Conan O'Brien and stuff when I was a kid. Yeah, so that would kind of like, I don't know, that kind of had an influence on me in some way. Like just the fact that she was so creative. I mean, she was doing this in her 80s, you know, so, you know.
What was her name? If you
Lee
know?
Kheel.
Lee Kheel?
Yeah, I'm trying to find, we have a reel of her stuff that she did, and I mean, she was very, she would do anything. Let's say, you know, early Conan O'Brien, they're some late night, you know, they're pretty out there sketches, but very funny.
Well, I kind of feel like there's humor in your art. I mean, maybe it comes a little bit from her. Did you grow up kind of having a good sense of humor?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so important. I mean, I really like, you know, with art, I think it's sort of a conversation, and you want to kind of try and sort of communicate with a lot of different people. And I think humor is like a really good way to kind of, you know, sort of get people's attention a little bit.
Did you ever do any cartooning? Or?
I did, actually. When I first came out to Los Angeles, one of the first things that drew me is I was working in animation at the time. So I was doing like a lot of like freelance animation projects and, you know, contract work and stuff like that. So yeah, I loved like not only drawing cartoons, but then also using like, you know, computer software to like animate stuff and make it move.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what years was that?
That was like the early 2000s. Yeah, and then I was still painting and doing some other art stuff, and then I got a studio downtown Los Angeles, right near the Fabric District.
When was that?
This is about 2009 or so, and I started walking around, and they had these huge rolls of fabric and everything, and I was like, man, what if I try using some of that stuff?
Yeah, and that turned out to be the main medium you use for your art. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. I started because of the sports and stuff that I was into. I kind of started thinking like, well, what kind of fabric materials can I use that kind of reference like my experience with sports? And felt came to mind just because it's like felt pennants, like in the memorabilia, banners when they hang a championship banner, even like varsity jackets with the sort of thick felt. And so that's what kind of got me thinking. The first thing I did was sort of large, sort of felt pennants, where I kind of did my own take on it.
Do you have other skills like carpentry, or sewing, things like that? Or did you have to learn them?
I've basically been learning as I've gone along. I like have some light woodworking skills, but in terms of like this, like quilting, sewing, plush, applique, all that, like a lot of it has just been classes that I've taken like around Los Angeles.
Whereabouts?
Like for instance, I took how to make a plush animal there was a studio space in Atwater Village run by Blue Rooster Art Store, and they had classes. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but they had classes, and they brought in on the weekend you could go and they'd teach you how to make a plush animal, in like a 6-week class.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like me and then like an 11-year-old girl and like 5 people from Cal Arts, and it was like the most eclectic group of people you could imagine,
Which might be kind of typical of this part of town in a way. Atwater, Silver Lake, it's very eclectic.
Exactly. Yeah, it was.
Or attracts eclectic people.
Yeah, and also I think there's like really open-minded parents, so they'd be like, oh, my daughter is into this, and drop her off and she'll do it, so it was like there's like a younger girl in the class, and then funky hipsters, and exactly. It reflected Silver Lake.
So one of those classes was kind of pivotal, you think, or really just walking around the textile district downtown?
I think one of the pivotal classes I took was at Art Center. I took a class with the Clayton brothers, and they were like really favorite artists of mine. They showed at La Luz de Jesus Gallery over here right on Sunset. I remember seeing their stuff, and it was amazing that you could just take this class and hang out with them for a couple hours. And that had a big impact on me, just like them sort of being like, all right, do this, try this, and that's sort of where I started messing around with other materials and kind of thinking, more about applique and collage and stuff from there, yeah.
So when did you do your first piece, would you say?
It was about 2009. I did a huge, this is a funny story, I did a huge, I was thinking about the Los Angeles Raiders. Is that okay?
Should we stop for a minute?
There we go. Of course, he's going to park right there, right?
Is there a Dodger game today?
Not till maybe. That's a cop one.
Yeah, sometimes for traffic. Do you have an app that identifies?
Yeah.
That's a little better. And are they building next door? Was that banging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
We have a mic switch.
Well, at least they turned down the music.
Okay, the funny story.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I was thinking about the Raiders, and I was like really interested in all the crazy costumes and stuff that people wear to Raider games, and how like it references all this other stuff. Like people dress like Darth Vader, they dress like ghouls and demons, like stuff that has nothing to do with the team. So I kind of wanted to see how far I could take that with a pennant for the Raiders. So I made this really like sort of like ghoulish, kind of like dark pennant for the Raiders, and I did it out of felt, black, white, and gray felt, where I cut it up and I put all the pieces together. And that was like the first piece I did, and it was in an art show in Glendale. It was called Gate. It was like this. They were like a group show they would do in Glendale in sort of spaces, like in sort of industrial spaces. But anyway, I showed it there, and then I have some friends that do chain stitching in East LA, which is like
what is that? Yeah.
It's like these old school sewing machines, and it's where like when you used to go to Disneyland and they'd write on your hat.
Oh yeah.
But this is for like they do it for like biker clubs and car clubs, and now they do it for like celebrities and stuff, you know. So, and they'll do like they do like really intense, like detailed pieces, like on the back of a jacket or whatever. So I just met with them, and I said, you know, and they're all, you know, into. I was like, hey, I'll throw this Raiders pennant up in your shop, you know, because they also had like a car customizing thing in there, and this is the perfect place for this, you know. And then I didn't even think about it. And then they have a TV show called The Mayans that just came out, which is a spin-off of Sons of Anarchy, the motorcycle show. Right. And they came in there, and I guess they were like, oh, we love all this stuff. We want it for the Mayans.
Oh, so did you made pieces for them?
Well, now that piece, the first one I made, is in the meeting room of the bike gang on the Mayans.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? I was like, really? I like called. He's like my buddy Tool, and he's like, all right, yeah, they came and they want all this stuff. I'll do a separate deal with you. I was like, oh, great, that's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, I was just happy having it in your shop.
That's great. So you never did any skull and crossbones or anything like that for like a gang or
no,
nothing. Right.
Strictly lawful.
Yeah. So really, I guess when you were in college, you decided to be a film major. Is that right? You wanted to do film?
No, I majored in art in college.
In art.
Yeah. I was an oil painter in college. Yeah.
Do you still paint?
Not as much. I mean, some projects here and there, and like little things I will, and like, you know, like actually on the Making It TV show, I actually ended up doing a lot of painting on that show just because of the time limits and like, you know, the taco truck. It's like, you know, I did a lot of the graphics.
Maybe we should talk about that right now.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
So you're on this show that's on network. It
NBC.
ran a season on NBC.
Yep.
And they were looking for crafters across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they chose you and one of your neighbors.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. They did a nationwide search of thousands of people and ended up with two guys within a block of each other in Silver Lake.
Right. So how do you think they found you?
Well, you know, I know exactly. Well, my friend is a woodworker.
Your friend here?
Here in LA. He actually moved, but he lived in Highland Park. And he sent me the link, and he said, hey, let's do this reality show. And I was together, and I was like, okay. But, you know, you get a lot of this kind of stuff. And so I was like, all right, filled it out, didn't think of it. And then I started getting calls from the casting person, you know, woman, and then more calls, and then I'm doing a Skype interview, and then, you know, one thing led to another, and then next thing I know, we did like a little pre-pro like the month before, and then they're like, you're on. Yeah. Then I was like in a barn with Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler.
Yeah, why don't you explain how the show works, and then you got really far in the show. Up to the second to the last episode,
Spoiler alert, right?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's already been on.
Yeah. But it's funny, like nowadays, like the way people watch, like people come up to me and they're like, we're on episode 2, you're doing great. I'm like, it aired a month and a half ago.
Why don't you explain how it works?
Sure. So the idea was Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler, and Nick Offerman's like a woodworker. He actually has a wood shop like right over here, like on San Fernando. Mm-hmm. And Amy Poehler, who has 2 sons, very passionate about crafting and making, but is not handy herself. So they were kind of the dynamic. And then they made a competition show where they invited 8 of us on, and they did 2 types of challenges. They did a short challenge and then a longer challenge.
All in one show.
In one show.
The first half is the short challenge.
Exactly, right. Which was actually filmed over a much longer period of time. But and the judges were Dana Johnson from Etsy and Simon Doonan from Barney's. Mm-hmm. And then, we actually went there and did these projects. They had made a craft
North Carolina,
barn.
Wasn't it?
No, it was actually in Thousand Oaks.
Oh, Thousand Oaks? You're kidding. I didn't know that.
I know, everybody says that. Everybody's like, were you in the South? I was like, we were in Thousand Oaks.
Oh,
yeah.
So you went there, and you had to compete against each other.
Yep.
And then, you're and every week, one person
went home. Yeah.
One went home, so it was 8 weeks long. Was
yep.
it?
6.
It was 6.
Six. The last episode was they did 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so they also had a winner each time.
Yep.
And then someone who was eliminated each time.
Yep.
Right. So you kind of made it all the way through, almost to very end.
Yeah.
And did it feel like a lot of pressure? Was it
I mean,
uncomfortable for you, or was it fun? Or
it was kind of like the whole time, all the building up to it. It was kind of like, is this really gonna? You just think, is this really gonna happen? Like, what is this? So you don't really think too much about it. But then I remember like when we actually did the first thing, where like you walk in and they have like a lot of cameras and people around, big crew. Then it was really like, take a deep breath. Like, this is really happening,
this is Hollywood.
Yeah, this is real. Like, there's just a guy whose job is to tell us to walk. You know what I mean? Like, and so that was like, and then also because it was the first season, like they got another season. So I'm interested to see what happens next season, because now they have a template for like the tastes or what you can get away with, what, everything, For us, it was like, literally, like during the first question, you have no idea what. I mean, it's so subjective. It's really,
Yeah.
So it was really just like, for me, it was like, okay, my goal is like, I have my projects and my passions, and like, I want to get as many of those on television as I can. And, there's nothing I can control.
You wanted to show your creativity and be true to yourself. Right?
Exactly. Like, I don't really watch any reality shows.
like a baking show.
That was the reference for it. So that's another thing I really should mention, is that like the competition part was really like I mean, I think it's more of like a comedy show with a little bit of like art and craft in it, and then a competition probably lastly, because they encourage us to like be like, we still text, all of us, like to be friends, like to like hang out, and even during it to like help each other with the competition. Like, it was a competition, but it was like a lot of different people, like from different backgrounds, different places, like being friendly and kind of making together. And then the competition I think it just made it so there was the time pressure, and it just made it so you wanted to do your best. You weren't just hanging out, and you still wanted to make something cool to put on television. But yeah, so.
And also, I felt what was kind of hard, I think, for me watching the show was all of your crafts were very different, so it was hard to understand how they chose a winner, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really. Did you
You're
have
telling
a sense
me.
of that? No, I think I said to you, I feel like they didn't quite get you in a way, because I love your art. I love what you do, and I felt like it was just so superior in a way to a more traditional crafter. Why don't you explain who some of the other crafters were? There were wood crafters.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think they had, they had like a paper crafter from New York who like does these beautiful windows, and then Kiem, it was a woodwork, like he has an art background. He went to Mass Art, but very like solid woodworker. Like, worked with his dad as a kid. Like really great woodworker, 3D kind of conceptual guy. And then there was Amber, who's like, she's sort of like a craft personality, she's like, runs a blog, and she does paper crafts, but very much like her MO. And a couple people on there were like this, where they're like, we want to have simpler projects that anybody can do and sort of be relatable to people, So like you're saying, like, it really was like,
apples and oranges.
It was really hard to compare, but like, I think at the end of the day, the most interesting thing to me from the feedback has been that, like, even though like I did some crazy stuff, like people were like, my boys or my kids, particularly boys, because it's kind of like not something that you really see boys doing. You know what I mean? Like, coming back and sending me photos and saying like, look what my kids tried to make a taco truck. My kids got cardboard out. They did this, and like even joking ones like, now my house is a mess because my kids are getting craft stuff everywhere. Just like, that is like, because like, that's really rewarding to see that like people like responded to it that way.
That's great. And you have kids, right?
I do.
Right,
yeah
right.
Yeah.
Do you do crafts with them?
Oh yeah. All the time. And like, they help me out with stuff in the studio all the time. I love, and we always like, anytime we'll like throw a piece of paper up on the wall and start drawing and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what you do is kind of fanciful in a way. I mean, do you feel like you have, I guess, how would you describe yourself as an artist? I mean, as like an animator kind of, or just you like textiles and you like to work with them, or you
Yeah.
like doing caricatures? I mean, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess like what really excites me is sort of like challenging people's expectations a little bit as to like either like what art can be, who can make it, what it could be made out of. Like those are the sort of questions that interest me. You know what I mean? And like art can be funny, or art can be made out of a basic material that maybe you could go buy at the big box craft store, or like I can work with textiles and fabric, and still be a football fan or a Red Sox fan. Like I think that to me is like really sort of what kind of gets me going. Yeah. So I don't know if that fits, like, I mean, people say felt artist, or artist in a craft medium, or crafter or maker, but it's all creativity.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit that there's a lot of art that's been kind of folk art, I guess. I mean, where people in poor areas, undeveloped country, or even like there's a book of dolls made by slaves who just had whatever material they could find, and they would sew it together and make a toy or a doll. And it seems like what you're saying is you could collect different objects, they might be remnants or whatever, and make some beautiful art out of that really relates to people. Do you think that's am I putting words in your mouth?
No. I think that's definitely true. I mean, like on the TV show, for instance, like we had a challenge producer assigned to us who would like, help us get stuff or whatever. And I remember at the end, my guy Mark was like, he's like, dude, you never spent more than like $500 on a challenge. I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like for me, like, I mean, I guess because I come from painting, which isn't entirely super expensive, it's kind of like, I think it's great that, like, okay, if you want to do this project, like, you do 5 minutes of errands and you come back and you can get started, you don't need to order special stuff on the internet or do, really, go crazy that way. Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
That's great. So, how do you normally do your artwork now? I mean, do you get commissions, or do you just create something because you love to do it, or you have gallery shows?
Sure, yeah.
Do you have a rep?
I show with I've done some shows with a gallery in Denver called Black Book Gallery. But yeah, I like doing gallery shows, but like I also like doing commissions, and like I like doing stuff actually with sort of like with like brands too. Like I did like for NBA All-Star Weekend, the Michael Jordan Shoe Company, they do these activation spaces for NBA All-Star Weekend, which is like, I know, right?
What's an activation space?
It's like a live space, basically, right? It's like live advertising, I guess. So they took over a building in Little Tokyo. They called it Studio 23, and they didn't let any public in. And they would just had this very fancy setup. It was like it's almost like a selfie experience, where you're walking through, and they had these cool neon lights set up and the shoes and everything. And they commissioned me to do a 10-foot by 6-foot tapestry of Michael Jordan, because it was a 30-year anniversary of him doing jumping from the foul line and dunking the ball. And it was also the 30th anniversary of the shoe he was wearing at the time.
The Jordans.
Yeah,
Right.
the Jordan 3.
Air Jordans?
Yeah, the Air Jordans.
Right.
So like, so that was great. Like, I mean, that's like a favorite thing of mine, like from a kid. And like,
Dream come true.
Yeah, exactly. A total dream come true. And it was like so cool. Like, it was like, I wanted to invite more of my friends, but they're like, you can't bring anybody down. But, so like I got to do this giant like tapestry, 10 foot by 6 foot. And then it was cool because they made it like a customization space where my piece was, so that like they had fanny packs, and they had jerseys, and you could get them sewed and redone there by sewers, and they would put patches on from other artists, and you could put chains and do all this, like, so kind of the idea that like, like my piece, where it was like sort of like a hand stitch, hand cut tapestry, and then it would like sort of inspire people to kind of, you know what I mean, to like to customize their own.
Customize it, right?
Yeah. But it was really
And
cool.
did you work from a photograph of Michael
Well, yeah.
jumping and shooting or something?
Yeah, well, that's like great. It's like a totally like lawyer thing. They're like, we have the rights to Michael, but not this photo, but parts of it. You know, it was like it was a whole rigmarole to get the image. But the one part that I thought was very cool was someone actually had to go to Michael Jordan with a phone and be like, "This," and he had to be like, "Yes." I was like, that's like Michael Jordan saw my.
Did you actually meet him?
I didn't meet him. I thought he was going to come. He didn't come. I know. They had like a influencer fancy party the first night. My wife and I went. They'd like passed apps and stuff. And we were just like, "Where's Michael Jordan? Where's Michael Jordan?" But he didn't come. I don't know.
So I know some of your work has been about the kind of local scene here.
Yeah.
Can you want to explain the burrito?
Sure.
The burrito.
Sure, this little guy? Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was about 4 years ago, I did a project where I went up and down Sunset Boulevard and I was really looking at the signs. And my first inspiration was the Happy Foot, Sad Foot sign.
Right.
I make a pillow of the Happy Foot, Sad Foot.
A podiatric clinic. Right?
Yes, it's still there.
Right,
it's still there, yeah.
Right.
And that neighborhood now is called Hafo Safo. It's like, have you heard that before? Like Soho, but they cut down Happy Foot, Sad Foot.
Oh. I didn't know.
So that's what people say. So that's right over there, and that really got me thinking. Because that's such a crazy sign, and it's in so much pop culture. Like it's in like a lot of songs and stuff where people, it's like a talisman. Like people come out of their house, and if it's a sad foot, they're like, go back to bed. If it's a happy foot, it's like in a Beck song and stuff. So that's what got me started, and then I just started really noticing. So I saw like Burrito King, Jumbo Bargain Elephant, and then I kind of went back in time a little, like Pioneer Chicken, Phoenix Bakery, and just looking at these characters from these signs,
They're
just
sort of iconic from the neighborhood.
so iconic and like so crazy. Really, you know what I mean? Like the Phoenix Bakery boy is a very strange thing. And just like the feet are very weird, but sort of a weird way to tell the history of the neighborhood a little bit. You know what I mean? Like what was here, what wasn't, and so that was like so what I did was I took the characters out and then I made large plush out of them, like this, like kind of like big sort of stuffed 3D, and then I installed them almost like a parade, like going across the wall with all the different, and it was just really cool.
Wait, installed them where?
Trencher. It's like a restaurant.
The restaurant, right, off of Sunset in Echo Park.
Next to Little Joy, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Little Joy, right.
Yeah, right next to there. And a friend of mine owned it at the time, and she's like, "You want to do something here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was great. I mean, it got a really good response. Like the LA Times wrote about it and stuff, and then it's been really cool to see since, because some of those businesses have gone out of business since then. Like Jumbo Bargain Elephant now is gone. One
of my favorite stuff.
Really cool, really, and a cool sign. And then it was really interesting to me. It was like, then I got like the Pioneer Chicken sign. Someone asked for
with the covered wagon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's in a Warren Zevon song about scoring drugs. He talks about being in Echo Park and being under the Pioneer Chicken sign.
I didn't know.
I know, right? It was like just kind of like putting it out there. So that was like one of the first like really specific to our neighborhood projects that I did. But it had like, even though it was like specific to here, it kind of had like a universal kind of feel, just because some of them are so iconic, and then also like.
And what inspired you to do the pieces about the LA River, which is sort of dear to our hearts here?
Thank you. Yeah. So I love riding my bicycle around the neighborhood. I mean, I did Ciclovia last weekend. Like I love it, and one of my favorite places to ride for years has been the LA River. Just going before the bike paths were there, and also just at that time it was like a really free kind of art zone. Like you could go down and kind of do stencil or spray paint in some areas, and it was like no one cared, no one was around. I mean, they've buffed it a lot now. It's different, but it was just kind of Wild West. And I just was really interested that also it was an ecosystem, and that also it touched on all these different neighborhoods, and it had all this history, and you see it in the Terminator, and Grease and whatever. So my idea was it's a place in like right on Silver Lake Los Feliz border called LA County Store, and she has a gallery in there.
It's everything in the store is made in LA.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a really cool idea. And it used to be a Radio Shack. So on one part of her wall is still what do you call it? Like an indentation from where they would display phones or something, or not a Radio Shack. It was like a Verizon store. So it was where they'd display the phone. So it's this perfect like 18-foot by 4-foot space, and I was like, man, it would be cool to make a diorama, like almost from the museum, only all out of felt and handmade of the LA River. So then, like, I started looking, and it's neat when they do those river cleanups. They keep an inventory of what they haul out of there.
Right, tons of stuff, right?
Tons of stuff, and tons of crazy stuff. So I looked at those, and like stuff I would never have thought of, like a Santeria sword. You know what I mean? Like crazy stuff. And just by making that, and then being real true to that, and then looking up, like, the animals really were amusing to me that are in there. Like, I think, like, there's I was underwater, so I didn't really do too many birds. That could be the second. I should do that. That's a good idea. But
underwater?
Like, my diorama was basically in the river. Yeah. So, like, but, like, there's tilapia, but then there's, like, a fish called, like, a bluegill that's, like an outlaw. Like, it's illegal in Germany. Like, you can't even... It's such an invasive species, because you think about what could live in there, and tilapia, like bluegill, there's carp, there's just, like, all these, like, crazy invasive species that are all kind of living in... It's like the outlaw bar of rivers, Yeah, and then also just the trash that you might find in there, like maybe a Tecate can, maybe a Pabst Blue Ribbon can, depending
shopping
on...
Carts.
Shopping carts. Yeah, I put one of those in the back. John's bag. Yeah, like, I just feel like it talks about sort of all the different people that live along it and what they're eating and their culture,
Did you ever kayak down the river?
I haven't done that yet. Have you done that?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah, you should. I mean, because you love the river too. So
yeah.
You might get inspired again, I guess.
I had a friend that did the kayak, and it was when a truck overturned on the 2 and exploded. And so he said he was like going down the river, and there was just a giant fire explosion. He was like, it was the most exciting kayak ride
ever.
in very Los Angeles.
Right. Well, before we go into your studio, do you want to tell us about your voodoo doll?
Oh yeah. So right now I'm working.
Hold it.
Oh yeah, right now I'm working on a kind of shrine for the Red Sox. I'm originally from Boston, and they're having like a really good season right now. I'll show you the large pennant I did, but what I did was, so I started with a large pennant, and then I kind of put it out on social media, like, for other ideas from Boston people, and I got some amazing suggestions, and one of them was Johnny Damon and Roger Clemens voodoo dolls, because they both started on the Red Sox and went to the Yankees.
Yeah. Oh no.
So and also I have an interest in voodoo dolls anyway. When you watch the TV show, I did some voodoo dolls on there, so you see what kind of projects I got away with on that thing. But so I thought that was a great idea. So this is the Johnny Damon voodoo doll, and he's even got pins that you can kind of like stick in him.
His arms, right?
Yeah.
He has the bat.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the bat. He's got the thing. And then I'm working on finishing up with Roger Clemens, and then I have like a great list of stuff that I'm just going to keep doing like throughout the playoffs if they keep winning.
Well, wait, hold on to it for a minute.
Sure.
So, how did you come up with the feathers? Is that it looks to me like a kind of voodoo doll you see in New Orleans?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you wanted to put that on him like this.
Yeah.
And then what about his face? How do you design that?
Oh yeah, this is the feathers and the face design were also based on exactly New Orleans voodoo dolls.
Voodoo dolls,
yeah,
right.
yeah, because it was really fun. Like on the TV show we had a shed hack project. We had to take a shed and make it into something. And I made mine into like a voodoo bayou bungalow, and I had voodoo dolls in there, and then we did a whole thing where, I stabbed one of them, and Simon Doonan acted like it was a voodoo doll of him, and it was very funny. And and like I have an aunt that lives in New Orleans, been going there for years. I have a connection to it, so I thought that's a great basis for a voodoo doll.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I guess I hope it works. Right?
Yeah.
Right. What's this?
This is his glove. So he's a lefty. So this is his righty glove, and then his little bat, and then
And
Yeah.
his number.
Yeah,
right.
his number. I put the pinstripes on him.
Can we see the back?
Yeah, sure. It's just a black back on him.
That looks like a typical voodoo doll too.
Yeah,
Having
right?
A solid color on the back.
Oh yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah,
It'd be cool to
okay.
make like just one with like Yankees.
And the first game of the playoffs is tonight?
They played last night. The Red Sox beat the Yankees.
Oh, they did.
I started getting texts from Yankees friends of mine, and I sent them that picture of this, and I was like, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, well, let's go in your studio.
All right.
Do I get your
Quick
kids?
question. Do you are working with fabric and sewing, which is considered such a, a feminine, a female sort of thing. Do you run into anything like that? Any sort of stigma or any feedback about being a man? I mean, clearly you do sports is a theme, so that's kind of very male, as it were. But do you run into anything like that? Any kind of feedback about you being a man sewing and
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think that it's funny. Like I work with a woman, like a pretty hardcore quilter, and I think she's just I would say she's like bemused, by me. You know what I mean? Like it's like at first she was like, this guy knows nothing, but he's got some crazy ideas. And then I remember the last time I saw her, and she was like, and I was talking about, I made a jacket for a show that was actually up last night in San Francisco, and I was talking to her all about the jacket, and she was like, look at you, she was like, check you out, like you actually know some stuff now,
You should make that jacket. Did it have a zipper?
Well, I actually just appliqued on top of the jacket, but even that, she was impressed,
Yeah.
But, the second part I would actually say to that too, though, is that there's like, I don't know what it is right now, but I do think that there's a little bit of a breakdown going on with that sort of, that because, like, for instance, I think some of it's coming from, like, the shoe culture, like, the Michael Jordan, like, people being interested in, like, how the shoe is made and put together and sewn kind of is a gateway, And then, like, there's me with sports, but then there's another guy in San Francisco who's, like, a rock and roll quilter, where he takes old heavy metal t-shirts and quilts them. And so it's kind of like something that people are finding ways to, like, you know what I mean? To, like, sort of break down that wall a little bit, Like, and I think also, like, just with, like, the sports, or, like, the chain stitchers, that's coming from, like, motorcycles and car clubs, which are kind of a macho thing, but, like, they're sewing on these old sewing machines, So, I don't know, like, I think that's definitely something that, is prevalent, but I feel like it maybe is, starting to change a little bit right now, just because people, just from a couple different ways, Hello, this is, what's your name?
Mia.
And this is
Matt.
Kheel.
How old are you?
I'm 8 and 4.
4. And Mia, where do you go to school? Do you go to school in Silver Lake?
In Mitchell Terena,
What grade?
2nd.
2nd grade. And Max, do you go to a school?
Yeah, I go to playgroup.
Playgroup too, right. Okay, great. So, do you like coming out to your dad's studio?
Yeah.
Do you
I made
have a
doll
favorite of something on the wall here? Oh, do you have a favorite?
No.
Okay. All right. So, Billy, why don't you start?
Sure.
What's this? I'm sorry.
That's a Goblin Shark. I like to do like stuffed sport fish, but I like to do kind of crazy versions. And I think someone commissioned this Goblin Shark from me one time, and I thought it's like this crazy like bottom dwelling shark. It was so creepy.
They wanted it in their house?
Yeah.
It's funny because my 3-year-old grandson wants to be a vampire squid. They exist for Halloween.
Really?
He's going to be a vampire squid.
What do you want to be?
A flying wolf.
A flying wolf? And Max?
What about you, Max?
A banana.
A banana.
I'm gonna have wings that go under here, so when I do this, they're gonna come out.
Sure.
Oh, cool.
But I
I
like
want to
the-
see a picture.
Yeah, the vampire squid, the flying wolf. It's like very intense.
Yeah. These, I guess,
Sure.
maybe up here.
Yeah, sure. So, this one is sort of just like an abstract pennant. Like this one I was just kind of like, this is just like an experimental one. I was just kind of like doing like a kind of crazy paranoia pennant.
And this is kind of famous of yours too, right?
Oh,
The Molotov.
Yeah, so, we didn't talk about this. So I did an installation in a window in Los Feliz where I did, a Molotov cocktail. It was like right after the Women's March, and we went down and just we marched in it, and it was just like I was just so taken aback by the energy and the passion, and then I started thinking like what if everybody in Silver Lake started throwing Molotov cocktails, and so that's why I wanted to do like a Trader Joe's juice box.
I liked Tapatio.
Tapatio, habanero, like all the El Yucateca, like
I like the. Daddy likes to eat that.
Yeah.
So you did all of these after the march?
So I did them after the march,
Wow.
and I installed it because I wanted to be like sort of I call it soft resistance, just kind of like the idea of like this sort of violent emotion, but like expressed like in kind of a soft way. And that I wanted to make it like sort of like with the river, like kind of reflect the neighborhood with the different products that people would throw.
What's that?
Oh yeah. So then there's a group that puts on these like sort of art shows, but it's called Into Action was the first one, and the second was called We Rise. And it's a giant warehouse down in the Arts District near like the old cornfield park. Did you go to this?
Shepherd Ferry did We Rise, right?
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And his art was in the show, and they put a bunch of us in the show. So for the first one, I did the Molotov cocktails, and they actually asked for a couple new ones. So I did like an ACLU card.
Yes.
I did the Ta-Nehisi Coates book.
What's an ACLU card?
It's like the American Civil Liberties Union. It's like a lawyer group that helps people's rights.
You did the Ta-Nehisi Coates
book
that his first book.
Yeah.
You recreated the book.
I'll send you a picture. I recreated the book, and I put like a giant wick coming out and like a match, like it was like a bomb. And then we did. I forget another book I did for them, but yeah. That was the first one. That was Into Action. Then they did another one called We Rise, and for that one, I did a giant pile of pills. So
And
like
then they all got sold.
Pills.
Yeah,
All right, there was like a mound.
of pills.
Of prescription pills.
Yeah, so because the idea was about like health and mental health, and so the idea was just like how many pills people are taking today and stuff. So I did Prozac, Adderall, Xanax. What's that one mean? Klonopin. I did a huge.
A Klonopin donut.
Yeah.
Lifesaver. Right?
Yeah. And I did like a huge pile, and then we actually made models. Remember this, Mia? We made models of her legs.
We measured my feet.
Right.
Yeah, and we make it look so it looked like the legs are sticking out.
Right. You
of
can't
the
even
bottom
see
of the
the
pile.
body.
Yeah.
Right? Just the legs and the pile.
Just a giant avalanche of pills.
Then
Yeah.
they were my legs.
So are
What's
these
Yeah.
works in progress?
Yeah, these are totally works in progress. So.
Wasn't this pig on the show?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, someone was like asking about another one of those. I figured it'd be handy to have around.
Here's
there's
the
an-
happy foot, sad foot.
Yeah.
Right there, a few of them.
That one had a
Yeah.
bandage on his big toe.
Yeah, that's the sad foot. Then I was.
Was there a shop that actually you put these in the
Yeah,
window?
yeah.
And how did they hear about it? How did that come about where you got to put them
That
in
was
the
my
shop?
same friend that I did the river thing in. She was like, "You want to do some?" Yeah, I think we talked about the Women's March. Actually, what it is so she does a art series every year, and I've been one of her jurors for the last like 3 years to pick people to be in to do an art show in her space. And then I think after Women's March, I remember we met. I think it was after the election, and it was like silent. Everybody was depressed, and it was like, well, let's let's
And
do
this was a
something.
gallery or a retail space?
It's a retail, and she has a gallery wall.
This
Okay,
used to be the
Look at this.
garage.
I did. Okay. Can you show us your? This is the LA River, right?
This is actually the intercoastal in Florida.
Oh, sorry.
I know, no.
I was thinking those palm trees don't look quite right.
Yeah, this is leftover stuff from the river right here, like a crushed Bud Light can.
What you found in the river.
Yeah.
And the fish too.
The fish, actually, I made one of these fish and I sent it to Nick Offerman as thanks for being on the show.
Oh, nice.
So it was like he's a Cubs fan, and then that's a I forget what the fish is. It's a fish native to like Illinois where he's from. Where they do ship fishing.
Why does it have that thingy on it?
It's a sport fish. It's a
That's
Cubs
the Cubs,
fish. And it's
the
just,
baseball team.
when we were
It
filming.
plays football.
When we were doing baseball, when we were filming the show, he was always checking the scores from the games on his
And
thing.
maybe explain this one.
Yeah, sure. So my brother lives in the Dominican Republic, in Punta Cana on the far eastern tip. And so I did a show about 2 years ago at a gallery in San Domingo. And because my brother's been down there now over 10 years. And so we've been going there. I mean, we were just there for his wedding in the spring. So we have a huge connection to the
I was
Dominican
the
Republic.
flower girl.
This is the flower girl. We have a huge connection to the Dominican Republic. Yep, and it's cool because the connection to baseball in the Dominican Republic is enormous. You know,
everybody grows up wanting to be on a baseball team.
Yep, and
be a pro. Right?
Yep, and every flight you get on, there's a pro scout with this. You'll see a guy in Yankee stuff, and even like out where they live. So he's in the eastern tip. The capital's here, so there's a long drive in between, and like you literally see this where it'll be like a couple bunch of boys with like a stick and a ball of something, and then there'll be like a cow out. You know what I mean? They gotta like run around they gotta use the cow as like a strike zone.
What is that made out of? What is it?
So that's felt applique. So I took all kinds of little pieces of felt and cut them and then sewed them down to make the image, and then the grass is fabric paint.
This one you can actually see through.
Yeah, that one I used.
You can see through his glasses.
Yeah, I used a different fabric in there.
Right. And are these tostadas from a local restaurant? Or
Yeah, these are tacos. These are from the LA Taco blog. You know that blog?
I don't.
You gotta look up LA Taco. It's a great blog.
Fishy.
That's a fish man.
Why do you make so many fish?
So this one, they have a taco bracket they do every year where they do like battle of the tacos, and they last year I think it was there was 2 taco winners. So I remember more. So I went over there for their show and I made.
You had a couple tacos.
I had some tacos,
right.
yeah, and I made sort of commemorative tacos of the winners. I think it was Tacos El Momo was one of them, and I forget what the other one was. But those are like the actual winning tacos.
Winning tacos.
The top 2.
And just one more, tell me Lasorda, because we have the Lasorda baseball field in Silver Lake, right?
With the weird right field.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so maybe you guys might play baseball there sometime.
I
you
want
never know.
to sign.
But were you a Lasorda fan, or you just honored him with that? Or?
I try. I'm interested in like with the Red Sox shrine, for instance. I'm kind of interested in that sort of area of like, sports and belief and like how you can like what people believe. Like your team's not going to win. Only one team's going to win. So why do you believe they're going to win? It's almost like. It has these like crossovers with sort of willing something to happen, so a shrine,
a
spiritual aspect to it. Exactly. Hold on, babe. And so year before last, there's a place on Fairfax called Koufax, which is like a restaurant, coffee shop dedicated to the Dodgers, to Sandy Koufax. Yeah.
Right.
So I did an art show there where I did all Dodgers, and the idea was it was at the end of the season, and we were trying to like help the Dodgers along. So I did Vin Scully, Tommy Lasorda, I did Jackie Robinson. I did a whole series of them. Yeah.
Great.
So it was funny because the Vin Scully and Tommy Lasorda ones, like people were really into those, even though they never played, but they're such big celebrities.
Right. Well, that's great, and it just shows your workbench.
Sure.
And then so you want to work kind of at chest level, I guess.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I like a standing desk, like
Good for your back.
Yeah, I've worked on other stuff, and like being like bent over like that is not. You got it, buddy? Thanks.
Do you want to stand up? Is that it? Sure. Yeah.
So I'm psyched about this table because it started out like a regular 8x4 table, but then when I did the Michael Jordan project, it was 10x6, so I expanded it out 10x6.
You had to make it bigger for that portrait of him.
So I feel like maybe like after, I get a bigger project after this, the table will get...
Right.
Soon the table will be like the size of the whole room.
Okay, so and it's kind of like a regular workbench, and you keep your material down here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess you buy fabric from downtown usually in bulk.
Yep, downtown. There's some new cool places you can order some wool stuff online. But downtown, even like for quick stuff like the Joann's, in Glendale is pretty solid.
I love Joanne. I do.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
What's this?
And then this is the Red Sox shrine on this side that I was talking about.
And do you use your computer for design?
I do, yeah. I'll mock up stuff in the computer. I still like to
program to use.
Photoshop, Illustrator, yeah. I also like to actually, like if I have a really big project and I'm squeezed for time, I'll cut a lot of stuff with a laser cutter. So I actually have to sort of draw it out in Illustrator before.
Like a pattern, sort of.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them. It's a maker space in the Westmoreland lofts. Do you know where those lofts are?
Oh, I do. Yeah, it used to be a bra factory. Or I know what you mean. Yeah, off of Silver Lake Boulevard.
Did it used to be a bra factory? That's interesting.
Yeah.
They have it's a maker space, and you can do hourly laser cutting in there. So I'm there all the time, and so yeah.
Okay.
Hey Max, don't drag that, Bubba.
Just finally, are those some reeds from the LA River
Yeah, that's
sticking up
exactly
there?
what those are.
Yeah, great. Okay, Mia, do you want to show us what you used for your birthday party, and we'll end with that, okay?
Okay, cool.
We did candy lancing, and we did like a real life candy thing. So then the game Candyland, we did it real life. Like we were the characters, and we made like out of construction paper these squares, and we made cards. And so we on like the special spots we put like candy, and then the first one to the end got candy.
Got candy.
And then you were handing out candy. And then, so this was
Yeah.
originally a taco truck, right?
Then we repainted
But then
it.
we repainted it as a candy truck, and Mia picked out all the candy she wanted on here, and then she helped me paint. Remember?
I did the lollipop.
You did that?
Yeah.
Good job.
She did a really good job, and she picked candy I wouldn't have expected, like Werther's original.
And I
Gummy
colored
bear.
in the gold.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you get any money when you sold the candy? No.
No.
No, it's just a party, huh? Okay, well, that's great.
Cat.
Yeah, there's a little secret cat.
So, do you all love living in Silver Lake? Is it fun to live here?
Yes,
would you say?
very much,
Yeah.
right, Boo Boo?
We're gonna knock down our house and rebuild it.
You are? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a plan.
Because you want to stay. Instead
Yeah.
of buying a new house somewhere else.
Exactly. You know what are we gonna do? Move to Eagle Rock?
Yeah. Okay, Billy. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank
really.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
You're great.